right, great. This shows that we are live. I just want to double check that that is accurate. All right, and I am starting to see that the notification has already appeared and people have begun to join us on here. So we'll move into some basic housekeeping. For those of you that may be first-time attendees onto our live broadcast, I want to thank you for taking the time to join us and encourage you to not only like our page here on Facebook, but be sure that you're following. If you follow the page, you get alerted when we post content and go live. If you just like it, you don't necessarily get that little notification that there's a video that you can jump in and join us on. If you are viewing this on our YouTube channel, then you can also hit the subscribe button, which does allow you to see when videos have already been published at a later point in time. Which takes me to the next comment that I always love to stick in there. And that is, if you are ever bored on a weekend, evening, or another time, and you are trying to catch up on the information that's going on in our community, resources that are available through the chamber, or maybe some of our newer partners, you can always rewind, rewatch, and find these videos in the video section here on our Facebook page and YouTube platform. Those are available to you. And we ask that if we are no longer in real time, that you give us a hashtag replay, which allows us to see any comments that you may share away or any questions that we can try and get to long after we are no longer live. Now, for those of you that are returning back to us, I want to take the time to also thank you for being a part of our broadcast series for over 2 years now. We started these way back during the COVID period and have retained about 2 on a weekly basis, up to 3 in a given month, to update you on city happenings that are going on at the start of the week. We welcome, of course, some of our newer partners, which is one of my favorite things to do here on Wednesdays. And then we always round out the month with some sort of an update from our county elected officials as well. So these videos are designed for you to get some information and a quick recap. They're designed to be highly engaging, and I thank you for not only tuning in, but hitting the share button on this video so others in your network can also see that we're live. Now, the final plugin that I want to give is the way that you can engage with us on this broadcast, because we don't just want this to be information that we're throwing out there at you. We want to know that you're listening in, that you may be picking up some of the information that we're sharing your way. The comment section is your best friend to letting us know that you are either absorbing this information, you're paying attention, or you have questions along the way. The comments is where you can list any comments you have, but it's also where you can list any questions. And whether or not you are watching this on Facebook or YouTube, you still have that opportunity to engage with us. Of course, you can react to the video if you'd rather do that instead of typing into something. Any of those reactions of a like, a heart, you can even give me the angry emoji. I will not take offense to it, but that allows me to see who's tuned in and joining us on this beautiful Wednesday morning. With that, I want to go ahead and welcome and introduce today's broadcast, which is a network welcome of our newer partners, Academy Bank. And I am truly excited to have both Jacob and Seth with me. Thank you both for being on here for some conversation.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Juliet. We're happy to be here.
Awesome. Thank you. It looks like Emilio has already jumped in here with us, giving us a quick good morning. Now, we thank you, Emilio, for tuning into this broadcast. Mario and Alyssa, I see you both as well on here and joining us. Again, this is the way that we can pull up any comments or questions. It's going to be through the comment section. It's going to be as you react to the video. So, Sarah, I do see you joining us. So let's go ahead and jump right into this. I promised to start this a little bit early, so all of my housekeeping wasn't eating up this conversation. So you all can get to know some of these faces behind Academy Bank, learn more about the brand if you're not familiar with it, and what the resources are, services that they have, and ways that they engage with our community. I do want to take the time to get to know each of our guests. So I'll ask them to share with us a little bit about themselves. Of course, you see their name, but we don't really know what their title is, what they do in the community, if they are newcomers to our state, if they've been around here for years. Let's get to know both of the team members that are with us. Seth, I'll have you go ahead and get this started off by sharing a little bit about who you are and maybe what your role is.
Yeah, so I am a Colorado native. And for most of my life, I did grow up in Westminster. So Westminster is my hometown, and that's also where my location is. So I'm at the Academy Bank that's inside the Walmart off of 94th and Sheridan. And I've been a banking center manager there for a total of 11 years. I worked for Academy Bank. I have 18 years in banking. I'm kind of what you call a boomerang employee. So I worked for Academy Bank for 5 years. I left, I went to another bank for 2 years, and then I returned. And I've been back for 6 years now.
That's awesome. And I love that term of a boomerang employee. I don't think I've ever heard that in your industry, but it's so valid because I've seen that natural trend with people in the banking industry and sector. So thank you for sharing a little bit about that. Jacob, can you tell me a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, thank you. So I am the National Sales Director of Business Banking for our holding company, Dickinson Financial Corporation. So Dickinson Financial Corporation owns Academy Bank plus Armed Forces Bank, which mainly caters to the military, all bases around the United States. So Academy Bank is a large staple of our retail center, which focuses mainly on our communities within the ones we serve. So I sit in Kansas City, but I frequently travel to Denver, Colorado Springs, and Arizona and Arkansas and other areas that we have a footprint. But I mainly focus on our small business, small commercial clients, where Seth caters directly to the consumer and those communities that she sits in.
Yeah, so you have, it sounds like different lines of work that are going on within Academy Bank. And of course, the partner or sister bank is what I would probably call it as well. If we speak to the market that's here in Colorado, and when we're looking at Academy Bank here around our community, whether it is that retail location that you're at, Seth, or maybe any of the others, is it primarily dealing with those local small businesses, residents of the community, or is it a combination and mixture of some of those service members as well that you could take on as clients?
Yeah, so for Academy Bank, we just more deal with, anybody coming up to open up an account with armed forces. They'll deal with the military. But for Academy Bank here in Colorado, we have quite a bit of our in-store locations, which are inside Walmart. We just make it a little bit more convenient to kind of do some shopping and banking all in one.
Absolutely. And how long have you all been in our community or in around Colorado? Because we mentioned a little bit, Jacob, about how you're out there in Kansas City. So I'm assuming that maybe the foundation of how you started as a bank was somewhere outside of the state of Colorado.
So yes, so our founder, so we are one of the largest family-owned institutions around. So especially here in Kansas City. So our founder, Gary Dickinson, started our holding company in a small farming community up about an hour north of Kansas City. And at that time, it was a community bank name. I can't remember, Farmers something, but as we continue to grow as a bank, as an institution, we merged with Armed Forces Bank, and then that's how we acquired our sister bank. And then we migrated through that process. So there was Armed Forces Bank in Fort Collins and other areas in Colorado, and that allowed us to expand our footprint for the Academy Bank. And I can get into a long history about Academy Bank and Armed Forces, and it would take,
Take up the whole broadcast. Yes, in itself, I can imagine for sure.
But what I like to say is, we invest heavily in the communities that we serve. That's what we're here for. We are a community bank. We thrive on it. We're still family owned, so the decision making process doesn't get lost up the chain. Right. I think when you look at larger institutions, you can only go so far, and you can only make quality decisions locally at a level that is tiered. So Seth has an opportunity, if she wants, within her community to make local decisions and invest locally for her branch specifically.
Mm.
So we've granted her the power and the availability to do that,
Yeah.
which you don't necessarily see everywhere.
And that is true. And that was one of the conversation pieces when we were talking initially about Academy, working with our chamber, working with our community, that it has become such a rarity to find a bank that is family owned or more of that community centric and not the larger corporate that has moved away from really putting in their dollars in the area community that they serve. So Seth, how have you used that empowerment that Jacob has spoken to really show your presence here, or maybe some initiatives or projects that you all have been taking on, whether it's past, current, or on the horizon?
Yes, so that is one of the things why I enjoy working for Academy Bank. Just kind of having more of like a down home, relationship where you can have it in a big city. So I'm all about relationship building, and because I did grow up in Westminster, there's a lot of things for like community that I use resources myself. And so that's something that's really important to me on making sure that my branch and my team that we give back to the community. So there's, certain charities that we have been a part of in the past with the Special Olympics, with the Relay for Life, helping out at the women's shelter. And so it was really important to me to even join the chamber, just so that I could really get to know all of the other small business owners, the community, and where we work. And so anytime that we can volunteer or be a part of something, that's what I make sure that we really give back to. And so I really like that the company just stands behind us and make sure that we do give back to our community.
Yeah. And yeah, I do. I love that. And it makes such perfect sense for you, especially since you've been in this community for so long, to be able to identify those passion projects and those organizations that can truly benefit from some of the support from your brand and your bank. When we speak about the services that you all offer, and I know we talked broadly about the two ways that you all service clients, whether it's through the location that's here or as we were talking about the service members that also have an opportunity to bank with you all. Can we start breaking that down into maybe I want to move into some myths, because we've already moved into a lot of our questions for today's conversation. And some of these are things that I've found online that people have either expressed or shared. And so I want to clarify if there is validity to these things, if it does apply for you as Academy Bank, or if it doesn't. Let's try and educate people a little bit more about your specific services and what you all offer. This very first myth that comes up is that all banks charge the same fees, bank fees and whatnot. Is that something that you can speak to a little bit? And I'll have either of you jump in depending on the question that you feel comfortable in answering.
Yeah, so I could go ahead and answer that. There are some bank fees that we kind of have general all across the board, just for, servicing the accounts. If you have any, like overdrafts that you have in your account, those will all kind of be like your typical bank fees, but they all do range in what is charged. So we do have many products that we do really tailor to a whole different audience, I guess, for products. So we do offer quite a bit for all of them, where we do kind of look at those fees. We look to make sure that we don't have as many fees in charging like the rate for clients to come and bank there.
Thank you for that. This question, it looks like it comes to us from Parker Brown. He's already typed it into the chat. So I want to go ahead and pull that up on our screen first. And I think it was during our conversation around you being a family-owned bank initially that's continued to grow across the region, really. And so his question asks if family-owned banks have better interest rates than the national banks, or is it completely mandated by the feds? Can either of you speak to that question?
I can take that one. So do they have large higher rates? Typically, yes, because they have more flexibility. The national rates or the national banks have a larger deposit base. So as they increase their rates based on the Fed, then they're raising their rates on a large multitude of dollar amounts compared to maybe a family owned. So Academy Academy Bank itself has about $3 billion in assets, with $2 billion of that being in deposits. So when we raise our interest rates from a 3 to a 4 per se, we're only raising that on $3 billion, where maybe a Bank of America or someone of that nature, if they were to raise it 1%, they're raising it on $1 trillion instead of $2 billion. So it makes a big difference to their bottom line. So we have a lot more flexibility with rate exceptions if we need to. We like to pride ourselves on making the right decision for the right people and the right purpose. So if it makes sense for the bank to make a higher rate, then we're going to make that decision. For example, if I had a business owner here in Kansas City who was looking to move a large chunk of money, and they were offered from a smaller institution a larger rate. Well, we were able to compensate and make adjustments for that specific business because we wanted to earn their business and we wanted to grow with them. So I guess the decision-making process, again, bringing it back to the family-owned institution, there's not many lines that jump above to get those decisions made.
Mm-hmm. So thank you for that answer. And Parker, we appreciate that question that's come through. This next one is going to be a myth or a truth. And of course, for those of you that are tuned in, and I do see several of you that are continuing to join us, maybe hopping on and off, whether you are joining us right now or later on, you can always type in some comments into the chat section for us to try and address if you have any questions or thoughts on something that you've experienced or just in general that you would like for us to speak to. This next one asks, that it basically states that you can't have more than one current account. So numerous bank accounts with different bank providers. Is that a myth or is it a fact?
I could go ahead and answer that one. That I would say is a myth. There are many clients that can have multiple accounts. Of course, you don't want to have too many, and you want to make sure that you're managing the one that you have. I know that we've had, several clients in the past that may have one that they have a joint account with somebody, or they're a single account. So, you can have multiple accounts. It's just all on what the need is and how well you're going to manage it.
Thank you. And I've typed several into the queue, so we'll just move over to the next one until I see any additional comments come through or any questions, if that's okay. These are going to be rapid fire, so I appreciate both of you for jumping in on them. A myth or a fact that you can't switch bank accounts if you are overdrawn. Can either of you speak to that?
So I could speak to that one. So yes, you want to make sure that you're in the positive when you are going to decide to, close out the account or open up a new one. We do have a system where banks, we do talk to each other. So, if you are abusing an account and you're continuing to leave accounts that are overdrawn, we do know about it. Of course, if there's a situation on that and you're overdrawn, definitely talk to your banker and see what we can do. There may be many options that you have so that we can get back in the positive. And if you need, additional assistance, additional products, then we really encourage you to talk to us about that.
Mm-hmm. Here's another question for us to speak to, and that is needing a photo ID to open a bank account. Is there truth to that, or is there another way that people can open an account if they don't hold a current ID?
So we do need to have a current ID. Does need to be valid. I know that there are some banks that may have, different requirements on it, but all across the board, we do need to have a valid ID so that we have, to verify. You could do, accounts online, but you do have certain requirements on what you have to send in, and one of those would be the valid ID.
So let's just move into a different question. And this is mainly one that's kind of come to my mind. And that's over the last several months, I'm sure you all have heard a lot of conversation around the banking industry, some loss of confidence, particularly because of some banks that are not performing as well, even though they were set as really the top of the line. And I'm really alluding to people like Silicon Valley's Bank and some others that have had issues come up. What, if anything, can you speak to that from the standpoint of Academy Bank? How are you different from them, or what measures do you have in place to protect some of your consumers in the long run from some of those intangible issues that might arise from the market?
I can take that one. So how we differ. So again, I'll relate it back to the family-owned bank. So we are not traded on the stock market. We're not our base price is not we're not held by any stock price. So a lot of the times where Silicon Valley, they were publicly traded. So as fear became knowledge to the public and they held stock, then they would make a run on the banks and pull a lot of those options out, where that would then in effect their capital ratios, where they need to be held maintained for the FDIC to look at them as being in regulation. So those were some of those issues that they came across, and they had a lot of clients that were above the FDIC limitations. So a lot of business clients. So when the fear came about, those clients that had uninsured deposits automatically made a run and transferred them out, which then adjusted their capital ratios, where you have to have a certain capital ratio to be under regulation with the FDIC and just the governing bodies. So I guess where we differ, we have a large variety of deposit bases. So we have a large commercial base, we have a large consumer base, and a large business banking base. And then we also have tools inside those bases that help us increase our FDIC insurance coverage for our consumers and our business clients. So an example on the business side, we have a FDIC sweep product. So say a business has 10 million in deposits. So I guess FDIC insurance coverage currently only goes up to 250,000 per business. So we have an opportunity to just spread that risk out amongst many banks through a sweep account overnight. So it basically takes those funds that are not insured, diversifies them to other banks inside a community, and makes them all insured up to, I think right now I have one that's at 5 million that's insured 100% with FDIC every night. Consumer side's a little different. You just have to add qualified beneficiaries to your account, and you could potentially gain more access to FDIC insurance coverage. But I'll let Seth kind of cover that one.
Yeah, so definitely with the beneficiaries, and sitting down with the bankers, we make sure to kind of see, what are you looking to invest, and make sure that we go through everything, because we really want to make sure that your funds are really insured. And we just kind of talk through that and see what we can do to insure as much of your money as we can.
Excellent. So I know I've been throwing a barrage of questions your way, some that have come through for us, some that were myths, some that were about you and where you're both located and your experiences. Was there anything in particular that I did not get a chance to ask you that you were really hoping that I did, or something that you were trying to get out there maybe to the public that you wanted to share? And if so, we've got a couple minutes for you to do that before I really wrap things up.
I would just kind of really like to turn that over to Jacob, because he is in charge of our business banking, and we have so many great products and ways that we can really help for small business. And so he's such a great expert in it. And so maybe if Jacob could kind of just touch base and share some of the products that we have for our business owners.
Well, thank you. Now that you set the bar so high. I guess one thing I didn't forget to say is congratulations on the national championship. I know you guys are a little outside of Denver, but Nuggets did very well this year, and
Yes, it was so exciting.
And we're a big Christian Brown fan, so he's actually went to high school at the same high school that my kids go to now. So it's it kind of runs down, so it's interesting. But for us, so what I would just like to say is we do like to invest heavily inside of the businesses that we work. So Ceph has access to a lot of different tools that you may not see elsewhere. And a lot more opportunity to have longer in-depth conversations that that you may not be used to if you have banked with maybe a larger institution in the past. So I'll relate it back to COVID and PPP years. We gained a large client base during that time frame because of how we handled our PPP process and our clients during that time frame. If any of you had the experience during that time, if you were with a Chase or a B of A, or you were more so just a number on a piece of paper, and you could not gain access to any contact information or how to proceed through that process. Where we built the ship while it was at sea. We basically said, okay, here's what we have, here's what we're going to do, and then we just progressed effectively through that process. And just during that time frame, and our focus on our existing clients and even the clients that are people referred to us, and the way that we handled that, we have gained, we basically tripled our book during that process because of just how we maintained our composure during an unknown time. But with that, now those clients have started to refer back to us just through the way that we handle their accounts and their loans, and just the openness to a conversation. I think that's hard to find nowadays, is where you can actually pick up the phone and call an actual person and sit and have a quality conversation about a specific need. An example, last night I had a client call me. He was at a dealership trying to buy a new Ram for his business. Called me, said, hey, here's what the dealership has. What can I do? I said, well, here's what we have. Here's what we can do for you. He said, okay, great. And this was at 6 PM. So how often do you have an opportunity to call your business banker after hours, before hours, send them a text, just to ask a question that you're unsure of?
It's not very common.
Yeah, you don't see it very frequently anymore. But that's, I guess, where I would say that we set ourselves apart, is our openness to be open to the client.
No, I do. I think a lot of times, especially now, whenever people are trying to reach out for a quick question on something, they're pushed back onto wait and list hold times, or, you go through a chain instead of just getting an immediate answer, or getting someone that's right there in your community that you want an answer from, not somewhere else that can't relate to an issue. So being able to reach someone immediately, or being responsive to them, I know is a huge value add that you guys have for them. Now, Ceph, you did share that you all are located inside of Walmart off of 94. So what I've done is included the address for folks if they're interested in trying to find you all physically. They can do so at 94th and Sheridan, 9499 Sheridan Boulevard. I've also included a quick phone number for people, and that's the 303 line that's out there as the main line. For people that might be interested in knowing, are your general hours usually the Monday through Friday, or being out there in a retail branch, are you also open on a weekend day for people as well?
Yes. So for the in-store locations, we are in a little bit longer than our traditional locations. Monday through Thursday, we're open 10 to 6. And on Fridays, we're open 10 to 7. Some of our locations are open on Saturdays, which is from 9 to 12. The location that I'm at, we are not open on Saturdays. We're just Monday through Friday.
Excellent. Well, I do love the flexibility of being outside of a regular business hour to allow for those business partners to maybe leave off of work at 5 and get to you, or at least those business professionals and whatnot. I've done my best to capture a lot of not only your address, your phone number, and your hours of operation inside the chat section for people that are tuned in with us, whether it's now or later on. Of course, I want to invite you, if you're joining us a little bit later, and I see you, Tom and Maria, thank you for coming on here with us, to rewind and rewatch some of the contents of this broadcast, I'll re-ask that you hit the share button so others in your network can also see that we were live. And then I just want to thank you all for tuning in and learning more about one of our newer partners. And of course, to both Jacob and Seth, thank you for being able to fit this into your schedule and coming on here and sharing more about yourself and what you all do. We've appreciated having you, and we cannot wait to continue to grow our relationship here in our community together. So have a wonderful rest of your day, and thank you so much for being on here with me.
Thanks for having us.